Paul was a good man. He had a kind heart and a gentle soul. He volunteered at the local animal shelter every Saturday. Helping those animals brought him joy. Paul loved adventures. He hiked, camped, and explored. The great outdoors called to him. Despite his good nature, Paul was insecure. He doubted himself, especially around women. Past relationships had left him feeling unsure. He longed to find someone special, but fear held him back. One warm spring evening, Paul decided to face his fears. He put on his best shirt and drove to the community center. A barn dance was happening. Music spilled out of the open doors. Paul took a deep breath and stepped inside. The barn was alive with music and laughter. Colorful lights strung across the rafters cast a warm glow. Paul stood by the refreshment table, feeling out of place. Then he saw her, Gemma. She was laughing with a group of friends, her eyes sparkling. She was beautiful. Paul's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to talk to her, but his shyness took hold. He watched from afar, admiring her grace as she moved to the music. Suddenly, their eyes met across the crowded room. Gemma smiled, a warm and inviting smile. Paul felt a surge of courage. He walked towards her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Would you like to dance?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. Gemma smiled again.
"I'd love to," I replied.
As they danced, Paul forgot all about his insecurities. Gemma's laughter was contagious. They talked easily about their lives, their dreams, their favorite constellations. Paul felt a connection he had never felt before. They exchanged numbers that night. Paul couldn't stop smiling. He felt like he was floating on air. He called Gemma the next day and they made plans for a date. Their first date was at a local coffee shop. They talked for hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Then they took a walk in the park, enjoying the sunshine and each other's company. More dates followed. They went hiking in the mountains, picnicked by the lake, and explored hidden corners of the city. With each date, Paul fell deeper. Section 4. The One. Paul had never felt this way about anyone before. Gemma was everything he had ever wanted in a woman. She was kind, funny, intelligent, and beautiful. She shared his love for adventure and his passion for life. They could talk for hours, or they could sit in comfortable silence, just enjoying each other's presence. Paul felt like he could tell Gemma anything. She understood him like no one ever had. He started to imagine a future with Gemma, a future filled with laughter, love, and adventure. He could picture them growing old together, their love only deepening with time. Paul knew he was falling in love with Gemma. He couldn't imagine his life without her. He decided to take the plunge. He would tell her how he felt. Section 5. A Dinner of Discontent. Gemma had invited Paul to dinner with her family. He was excited to meet the people who were important to her. He wanted them to like him. He wanted everything to be perfect. He arrived at the restaurant feeling nervous but hopeful. He brought flowers for Gemma's mother and a bottle of wine for her father. He wanted to make a good impression. The dinner started well. Gemma's parents were warm and welcoming. Her siblings were friendly and engaging. Paul felt at ease. He told stories and made them laugh. He felt like he was part of the family. Then, during a lull in the conversation, Gemma's mother asked,
"So, Paul, are you two just friends, or is this something more serious?"
Section 6. The Friend Zone. Paul's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Gemma, his heart full of hope, but the look on her face made his stomach drop.
"Oh, Mom,"
Gemma said, laughing awkwardly.
"Paul is a dear friend, that's all."
A wave of nausea washed over Paul. The room seemed to spin. All eyes were on him, but he could only see Gemma. Her words echoed in his ears, each syllable a hammer blow to his heart. He managed a weak smile, trying to hide the pain that was tearing him apart inside. He pretended to laugh along with everyone else, but the sound felt hollow and forced. The rest of the dinner was a blur. Paul couldn't eat. He could barely speak. He felt like a fraud, a fool. He had poured his heart out to Gemma only to have it handed back to him, broken and unwanted. As he walked away, the weight of rejection pressed heavily on his shoulders. Section 6. Sleepless Nights. I lay awake in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of the evening. The weight of disappointment and heartbreak pressed down on me, making it impossible to sleep. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the sting of unrequited love. The words "just friends" echoed in my mind, each repetition amplifying the ache in my chest. I had hoped for so much more, dreamed of a future with Gemma by my side. But now, those dreams felt shattered, scattered like fragments of a broken mirror. I tossed and turned, replaying the dinner in my head. Every smile, every laugh, now felt like a cruel joke. I remembered the way Gemma's eyes had sparkled when she talked about her passions, the way her laughter had filled the room with warmth. I had fallen for her hard and fast, only to find myself standing alone in the cold. I wondered if I had misread the signs, if I had been blind to the reality of our relationship. Doubt gnawed at me, making me question everything. Was I just a fool, hopelessly in love with someone who would never see me the same way? As the hours passed, the darkness outside mirrored the turmoil inside me. Sleep eluded me, replaced by a restless energy that kept me tossing and turning. I wished I could turn off my thoughts, silence the pain that gnawed at my heart. But in the quiet of the night, there was no escape. I lay there, feeling the weight of my unspoken love, the silent screams of my heart echoing in the empty room. And as the first light of dawn began to creep through the window, I knew that this night would haunt me for a long time to come. Paul couldn't bear staying in his room any longer. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating him with the memories of Gemma. He needed to escape, to find some semblance of peace. So he decided to take a walk through the park, hoping the fresh air would clear his mind. But as he wandered along the winding paths, all he could see were couples holding hands, sharing quiet moments of affection. Each sight was like a dagger to his heart, a painful reminder of what he longed for but couldn't have. His mind raced with questions. Why had she rejected him after all they had shared? Was he not good enough for her? Did he misinterpret their connection? Paul's insecurities deepened with each step. He felt like he was drowning in a sea of self-doubt, unable to find solid ground. The park, usually a place of solace and tranquility, now seemed like a cruel mockery of his loneliness. Everywhere he looked, he saw her. The way she tilted her head when she laughed, the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about her passions. It was as if the entire world had conspired to remind him of what he had lost. His heart ached with the weight of unspoken feelings and shattered dreams. As he walked, the gentle breeze rustling the leaves above, Paul realized that the park was no escape. It was just another place where his thoughts of Gemma could haunt him. He felt more alone than ever, surrounded by people yet completely isolated in his pain. With a heavy sigh, he turned to leave, knowing that no matter where he went, his thoughts of Gemma would follow. The park, once a refuge, had become a mirror reflecting his deepest insecurities and heartache. And as he walked away, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever find a way to heal. Just as Paul was about to leave the park, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw Gemma's name. His heart skipped a beat. Hesitant, he answered.
Hey Paul, it's Gemma. I was wondering if you'd like to go on a trip with me tomorrow. I found this beautiful coastal town I think you'd love.
Paul could hardly believe it. After days of sleepless nights and endless questions, here she was, reaching out to him. Sure, I'd love to, he replied, trying to keep the excitement out of his voice. The next morning, they set off early. The drive was filled with light conversation and the gentle hum of the car engine. Upon arriving, the picturesque town welcomed them with open arms. They explored quaint shops, strolled along the sandy beaches, and shared a delightful lunch at a seaside cafe. As the afternoon sun began its descent, Gemma suggested a hike to a nearby cliff with a perfect view of the sunset. The path was steep, but the promise of the view kept them going. When they reached the top, the sky was ablaze with hues of orange, pink, and gold. Sitting on a large rock, Gemma snuggled up to Paul, laying her head on his shoulder. Paul, savoring the moment, rested his head on hers, feeling the soft texture of her hair. The warmth of her presence melted his anxieties away.
Thank you for such a lovely day.
Gemma said softly, her voice carrying a sincerity that touched his heart. Paul smiled, his heart full. It was a lovely day. I enjoyed every second of it. In that moment, the weight of his doubts and insecurities lifted. The coastal town, with its serene beauty and the company of Gemma, had given him a glimpse of hope and the possibility of healing.